Okay, we're finally starting the journey. Gardens of the Moon, Steven Erikson. Let's just get right into it. I am so eternally grateful that I heard about this series. I almost didn't hear about this series. I basically heard whispers of this series at my job. I was talking about the Stormlight Archives to a coworker of mine, and he just looked at me and was like, "Have you heard about Malazan, though?" And I had no idea. He hyped it up a lot. And yeah, I just dove into Gardens of the Moon. I'd read it, I think a year ago was the first time I had read it, and I skimmed through it this time just to refresh my memory. But yeah, I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, so I think I'm just going to start the beginning of this video as a non-spoiler kind of chit-chat about this book, and then I'm just going to jump into spoilers. And it's not going to be easy because there is a lot going on in this book and in this series in general. I've gotten all the way up to Memories of Ice at this point, but I'm going to keep going and expect reviews to come out for those as well. Gardens of the Moon, or as I like to call it, World Events, Book 1, is basically about the events surrounding a particular empire that has an overwhelming amount of power in this very fleshed out world with a really cool magic system. I guess magic systems if you count some other sort of things that they start to dabble into. I think I'll start with my favorite thing about this book, and that is the characters. There is no loss of interesting characters here. You will 100% find people that you will like. 110%. And even the ones you don't like, chances are by the end of the book you will like, and vice versa. The more effort you put into the book, the more you will get out of the book. But what's great about this is, even if you are going through it, not necessarily understanding what's going on in the in every sense, and you're not picking up 100% of what is going on, because frankly there are a lot of moving parts, there are a lot of people, and everyone has their own motivation for what they're doing. You can still get a lot of value out of the story, and that is so impressive. It's inspiring for me as someone who would love to be a writer. It's great. The world building is nothing short of juicy goodness. Erikson's use of action in this is, he doesn't use it a whole lot, but when he does, it goes from being, this great dialogue between two characters right into just anime level action. Intense. The stakes are high, it's interesting through and through. And of course, yeah, there's parts that you could call a lull, but I think it really depends on the person. What parts of this you'll find interesting, what parts you won't. But there's so much variety. I love his take on pantheons and gods and how they function in the world. And although it can feel overwhelming at times, that's okay. It's that type of story, and I think that the type of person that I would recommend this to is someone who likes the genre of fantasy, who has delved into lots of variations of the genre. You've read at least a couple classics, you've jumped into sort of some more modern fantasy, and you're looking for something different. You're looking for something that's a bit more challenging. This is definitely it. And I have only good things to say. And what's even better is that as someone who's at least read 2 books ahead, I'm at book 4 now, I haven't started it yet, but as someone who has at least read the first 3, it only gets better and better. And what's even more impressive is that these future books give this one more value. So much is prepared here, so much in here, you don't... I didn't even notice. I didn't even remember was mentioned. And that's great. There's stuff in here I forgot even happened. There's stuff in here I don't even remember happening, honestly. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend this to a fantasy fan. Someone who loves the genre and is looking for something new, who has delved into some things at least. As I'm reading this, I can just tell that the dude knows exactly what's going on. And if he didn't know, like, if there were parts of this that he didn't actually know what he was setting up, you fooled me, man. The most common response I get from people when I talk to them about, Gardens of the Moon, Deadhouse Gates, and Memories of Ice, is literally this. You don't even know. Consistently, you don't even know. So, absolutely, check this one out. And you know what, honestly, if you're not someone who's experienced in fantasy, but you are someone who is well-read, you like fiction, you like good storytelling, try it out. At least try out Gardens of the Moon. See what happens. I would say, in terms of length, it's about 600, it's in the mid-600s. It's not too long. I think it's a very good size, and it's just a hell of a time. If I were to give it a rating out of 10, I'd probably put it in like for my first read, I'd probably give it like a 7.5, but after the second go through, I'd give it like a strong 8. But I have no doubt that as I continue to read the series, this one's rating will only get higher and higher. Now, let's get into spoiler talk. Alright, I got a lot written down, but because there's so much that happens in this book, I'm just going to separate it based on character, because I think that's the only way that I'm going to have some semblance of organization while I just talk about stuff that I loved in this book. Ganos Perrin. Of the characters in the book, I wouldn't put Perrin very high on my list of favorites. I liked Perrin. At the beginning, I didn't really care for his character. I thought he was interesting, but when he got killed, I was like, okay, that's a bit of a Game of Thrones vibe we're getting there, Boom, we got a character I assume to be important getting wiped out. Was resurrected or just brought back by Opon or the Opons, because I guess Opon is two different people, the sort of two sides of the coin, if you will. By the way, the coin thing was really cool. Perrin touching the blood of the hound and him jumping into the dimension within Dragnapur, the Sword of Rake, was wild. The cart rolling through this bleak, depressing world that he was in was just crazy. Having Rake sort of appear and fight off the hounds for a moment, and I remember describing Rake fighting the hounds as like it was just an instant where Rake basically just moved with such speed and ferocity, and I think he killed 2 hounds if I recall correctly. But yeah, Perrin wasn't too high up on my list of favorite characters. I feel like by the end of this book, I did like him, but his character really, his character nails it for me in Memories of Ice. And when we start to talk about Memories of Ice, I will really get into my love for Perrin and his journey in that one for sure. Next up, we have Hairlock. Having him not only, when he got his body split in half, and I think they were there was an implication that it wasn't Rake's overwhelming power that caused that, but potentially Taskred, like, offshooting his warren or something like that, splitting him in half. That was crazy. It was just, it's so early in the book too, it's just like, oh my god. And he's, screaming, just begging for Quick Ben to do whatever he's doing, and he soul shifts his body into a marionette. And the description of the soul shifting, I remember it being, it kind of reminded me of a symbiote. The way they described the sort of black energy that was coming out of Hairlock or going into him. I think it was coming out of him and then going into the wrapped marionette puppet. But it gave me this image of a symbiote, but, arcane, dark energy rather than this physical, goopy, whatever. That was crazy. Next up we have Hairlock. Having him not only... when he got his body split in half, and I think they were trying to... There was an implication that it wasn't Rake's overwhelming power that caused that, but potentially Taskren, offshooting his Warren or something like that, splitting him in half. That was crazy. It was just, it's so early in the book too, it's just like, oh my god. And he's, screaming, just begging for Quick Ben to do whatever he's doing, and he soul shifts his body into a marionette. And the description of the soul shifting, I remember it being, it kind of reminded me of a symbiote. The way they described the sort of black energy that was coming out of Hairlock or going into him. I think it was coming out of him and then going into the wrapped marionette puppet. But it gave me this image of a symbiote, but, arcane, dark energy rather than this physical, goopy, whatever. That was crazy. Having him in the body of a marionette is a hell of an image. I would love to know how Erikson came up with that. When I was reading it, I was always imagining that Hairlock was just moving around like a marionette, but his face was whatever was designed on it, and that was a terrifying image for me, and I liked the creepiness of it, so I just stuck to that in my head. So Hairlock was I would say was a top contender for the favorites. I feel like I should do him last. Yeah, we'll do him now. Krupp. Oh, sweet Krupp. Oh, Krupp is amazing. From what I understand, he's kind of one of those characters that's a bit controversial, I think, in terms of the tone he brings to the story. But I love Krupp. I feel like I could talk about him for a long time, so I'll just repeat what Rake says about Krupp, and it's as simple as this. Let that man be a lesson to all of us, truly. I resonated deeply with Krupp and that whole idea of someone who is completely detached from ego. He's just a goofball who really does prioritize the goal over himself, and he's not going to let anybody get past him. Not Rake, not, I don't even know, any other of these multitude of overpowered people. And again, I don't want to get into other books, but when we get into Memories of Ice, we start to see these types of people and their interactions with Krupp, and it's just great. The Bridge Burners. One of the best parts of this book. Something I found so interesting about the Bridge Burners is that them overall, I don't feel like they did a whole lot. I mean, they were plotting and planning, and they're planning bombs all over this city. Especially like a character like Whiskey Jack, right? He's not doing a whole lot. He's leading these people, and you can tell that these people respect him. I respect him, You can see this nobility in him, this courage in this man, and you see how these people respect him. I mean, they respect him enough that they look at their commanding officer, Perrin, and say, like, look, man, as long as you understand that Whiskey Jack is our leader, we're good. I don't care what title you have. Do you know who that is? That's the vibe I got when they sort of spoke to Perrin. It was like, he's like Captain America, He's just like, he's the guy. And Erikson conveyed that very well. And all I wanted was just more. Oh, I wanted so much more Bridge Burners. We get a bit with, Fiddler and, is it Hedge who's the sapper? There's so many of them, but I think Hedge was a sapper. Fiddler was a sapper. Fiddler is a funny fella, because I don't know, he's like playing with a deck of dragons, which is like a sort of deck that has some sort of prescient quality to it, that it is connected to something and it is able to communicate and convey things, but at the same time, people have to use it properly for it to be able to convey itself properly. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if it means distinctly that you have to be attuned to the art of divination to be able to sort of use the divination of this deck, which makes me think that maybe Krupp can use a deck of dragons without a problem, but Tattersail was able to. I know she was able to. Fiddler's able to. Maybe some of the other bridge burners can. Quick Ben can probably. Quick Ben, man, that guy can do anything. Jeez. I think Mallet, is he a sapper? No, Mallet is not a sapper. I'm pretty sure Mallet's like a mage. He's like a Cadra mage or something. He's like their healer. There's so much good stuff with the bridge burners. I would say that of the bridge burners, my favorite, it's gotta be Cullum. Cullum is my favorite bridge burner. His look, his vibe, his friendship with Quick Ben, his capability as an individual, his title as a Clawmaster. Yeah, ex-Clawmaster. He's an ex-Clawmaster. Or was he like the ex-head of Claw? Either way, he was a Clawmaster. Whatever that means. I'm assuming it means you're of the highest rank in Claw. Amazing. And when, him and Quick Ben are, I think they're following Ralik Nom and Ocelot. And they get jumped by a bunch of Tistandi. That was crazy. High Alchemist Barrack. I loved every scene with Barrack. I don't know what it was exactly, though. I think I'm just a fan of alchemy. I'm a big fan of Full Metal Alchemist. I'm a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons and the concept of alchemy and the idea that, it's like chemistry and magic combined. I love that. I loved his dialogue with Crone. I loved his dialogue with Rake. His dialogue with Mammoth. Everyone that he was with, the way he conveyed himself, the way he held himself. Great character. I think my favorite thing about him was something we didn't get a whole lot of, and that was the fact that he has history with Ralik Nom. And he seemed like a pretty deep relationship or history he has with Ralik Nom. Like, when he saw Ralik Nom at the fete, he was worried about the guy. He cares for him in some way, shape, or form deeply. More Barrack, or Baruch. I've heard it's a couple different ways. There's a lot of names in here that I hear people say so many different ways. Sometimes I say Malazan, sometimes I say Malazan. Most people say Malazan. When I'm reading on my own, I say Malazan. Crone. Crone was the first part of the book that hooked me to the book. The image of this large raven, like, pushing their head through Barrack's door, and then just, like, talking, speaking like this grumpy old lady. It was, it just dropped me in. I was immersed immediately. I like the way Crone just jives with people. Crone is a funny individual, and I hope we get more detail about Crone. Very quickly, I don't know if I have a whole lot to say about this character other than stylistically, love them. Circle Breaker. Name alone. Chef's Kiss. Great name. Pissed me off, though, because we didn't get a whole lot of Circle Breaker. I wish we got more Circle Breaker. I hope... It doesn't really make sense for Circle Breaker to be in future books, so I doubt it, but I would love more Circle Breaker. And my favorite character, Ralik Nom. Rallignam was my favorite character. I loved his I loved his intensity. I loved that he took all these I loved that he took everything so seriously. He was the type of dude who had a very difficult time just being laid back and relaxed. And you could see that he had such a great group of people around him. His motivations were interesting. He was trying to help out his friend Cole, who was screwed over, deeply screwed over by his wife. I believe she was his wife, or betrothed, or something like that, Lady Simtal. He was just trying to help him out. I liked that he could almost switch off his empathy in a way. He was, an assassin through and through. When he rubbed the Ototaro dust on his body, I remember reading it just going, oh my god, where is this going to lead, So I'm hoping that we get more of him in future books, because he's a top contender for me as my favorite Malazan character in general. Now we get to, not my favorite character, but my favorite part of the book. The awakening of the Jagged Tyrant. This was anime goodness to me. When Raced came out of that tomb, I could just tell by his introduction that we were in for something crazy. Just the way it described, he walks out and he sees this sort of yellowed grass around him, and the wind is, I can just see it in my head so clearly, the wind at his back. He's just feeling life around him. And then, as if that wasn't enough, as if just introducing this daunting, intimidating figure wasn't enough, Erikson literally just drops 5 dragons on us. This is Rake's response. This is Rake's first wave of attack. 5 dragons. Well, 4 Soul Taken, or are they Divers? No, they're Soul Taken. 4 of his Tistandi shape-shifted into dragons, and Silana Redwing, who I believe was a legitimate dragon, not a shapeshifter of any sort. And the way he describes the air detonating around them as their warrens collided together. And I think, if I remember correctly, the dragon, like the dragon, when it opened its mouth, I think it was opening a warren. Was it not? Please correct me on that. Was it not opening a warren within itself and just blasting fire out of its mouth? That's an interesting little, touch to the idea of dragons and, their lore. But having Raced complete confidence in himself too, unwavering pride, filleting his sort of essence from his warren as he's just tearing these dragons apart. And to be fair, they're tearing him apart as well. Like, they're stabbing him with their talons, like ripping his body apart. And by the end, they do kind of get him. I mean, he does. I don't get how it works. They don't really explain it. I'm curious if it's like soul shifting or soul possession. But once he's kind of had enough of their onslaught of him, even though, they've pretty much turned so much land into ash, he is able to send himself into the body of, he chooses Mammoth. He chooses Crocus's uncle. And the poor guy, he takes over the guy's body, and then instead of being attacked by, 5 dragons, he gets attacked by Quick Ben and like 8 other mages, and they throw an onslaught onto him. And as if that wasn't enough, as if things couldn't have gotten crazier, Quick Ben opens 7 warrens. 7! what's cool? I don't like. It's such a fun way. Like, this book is so fun because it's like you don't know anything about this world. You don't know how any of this works, and we don't know what a warren even is. We understand that it's their magic. They can access this thing in some way, shape, or form. They can use it, project it. They can do these. Mages can do mage-like things. But then it drops 7 on us. It's like, oh, so a mage can open more than one. Oh, okay, well, what other possibilities are there, And it's these types of things that are like, okay, what's in the next book, man? This was book 1, and there's 10 of these? Give me more. Seriously, give me more. I could not get enough of this. I mean, he opens 7 warrens and then proceeds to just obliterate Mammoth's body. I mean, I think Mammoth was dead the moment Race took over his body, unfortunately, and that's a bummer because Mammoth was a really good guy. But yeah, Race was pretty much obliterated at that point when he opened his 7 warrens. I think he described it as his energy was just overwhelming the body and it was just tearing it apart. And just in case he wasn't dead yet, Quick Ben looks to his side and he sees Hedge looking like a maniacal fool. And he has like a loaded Moranth munition in his crossbow. And just to make sure, which is fair. I mean, this Jagged Tyrant is no joke. He just blows him to smithereens and turns him to dust and lets his ashes join the rest of the ashes he left over in the meadows and once hills and fields. What a ride. This was such an entertaining, intriguing, interesting first book in the series. Such a strong start to the series. It says so much that this first book only gets better with time. Only gets better as you read the rest. And I look forward to talking to you guys about Deadhouse Gates. So yeah, that is going to end it for my overall review of Gardens of the Moon. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. That helps me out a ton. But until next time, I'll see you around.